Hey, I'm Ginny. Welcome to Prompt. Let's recap some major stories from this week. We will be talking about Ford and Kavanaugh's testimony, so just keep that in mind if that's something you're okay with hearing right now. If not, just skip to the second half of this video. Okay, so the FBI investigation finished up today, and things are looking bad for the Democrats. Let's back up and remind ourselves how we got here. Last week, Ford spoke at the committee hearing and agreed to be questioned by senators. It was an emotional day for people at the hearing and for people watching. And people watched from all over the country, from airplanes to bars that opened up early just to show the hearing on TV. Ford opened with a powerful statement. I'm here today not because I want to be. I am terrified. I'm here because I believe it is my civic duty to tell you what happened to me while Brett Kavanaugh and I were in high school. And after describing the sexual assault with 100% certainty and detail, she also said, I did not want to tell my parents that I, at age 15, was in a house without any parents present, drinking beer with boys. I convinced myself that because Brett did not rape me, I should just move on and pretend that it never happened. She also said that her strongest memory of the event was the uproarious laughter between Brett Kavanaugh and his friend Mark, who were, quote, having fun at my expense. This poor woman has been thrust into the spotlight amid death threats to relive an extremely traumatic and vulnerable experience. Despite this, she came forward because this man was going to be given the responsibility of making decisions for all Americans for a life term. That's civic duty. That's courage. She wasn't even going to become public until she said enough was enough when reporters would show up to her house and her classroom. And I'm tired of people saying that Kavanaugh's life will be ruined because of this. Ford has received death threats, she's had to hire private security and move out of her family home. Senator Dick Durbin said that Mark Judge should be subpoenaed from his Bethany Beach hideaway and required to testify under oath, but he is not. Judge Kavanaugh, if he truly believes there's no evidence, no witnesses that can prove your case, should be joining us in demanding a thorough FBI investigation, but he has not. A couple people who Ford said were at the party said they had no recollection. And why should they? It was 36 years ago, and for them, it was an unremarkable night. They weren't sexually assaulted, like Christina Blasey Ford. While the Democrats spoke to her directly, Republicans referred their time to a prosecutor, Rachel Mitchell, to question Dr. Ford. Now remember, this was not a criminal proceeding. This was not a trial. This was a confirmation hearing. Regarding Ford's testimony, Senator Orrin Hatch said, I don't believe she's uncredible. I think she's an attractive, good witness. And then when asked what he meant by attractive, he said, in other words, she's pleasing. Also, Tarana Burke, the founder of the Me Too movement, was in the room watching. Then it was time for Brett Kavanaugh to speak, and boy, was he angry. He said this confirmation process has become a national disgrace. Kavanaugh was actually brought to tears in his opening statement. Boo-hoo. I wonder what would have been the reaction if Ford raised her voice as he had, or interrupted those questioning her like he did. Kavanaugh kept bringing up his calendar. He was too busy with sports and doctor's appointments to sexually assault anyone. And he explained how, in all his career, he was never accused of assault. Yes, because reporting a sexual assault and accusing a powerful man is hard for women to do. He could have gone the rest of his life without being accused, but because being nominated for the Supreme Court was the final straw for these courageous women, we can finally hear the truth. Kavanaugh said that he wanted a hearing the day after the allegations came out, but he never directly answered if he wanted an FBI investigation. And speaking of not answering questions, when asked if he ever blacked out from drinking, he turned the question back onto the senator and asked if she ever blacked out. What the fuck? Also, he didn't answer the question about if he would want Mark Judge to come in as a witness. Also, did you know he went to Yale? Kavanaugh also lied to the committee about his drinking habits, according to those he went to school with, as well as his lovely yearbook postings. So, after this exciting hearing, moderate Republican Jeff Flake said he was going to vote yes to confirm Kavanaugh. But then, Flake had a change of heart. Kind of. And for this, we can thank passionate protesters who confronted Flake in an elevator. The reason I say kind of is that he still voted yes to pass the nomination onto the Senate, but only under the circumstance that before the final vote, an FBI investigation is done. So, some idiot Republicans maybe really do believe Kavanaugh. But for many of them, like the ones who said Ford's testimony seemed credible, do believe Ford, they just don't care. So the FBI got to basically perform another background check. Reminder, it's not a criminal investigation, so while they interviewed some witnesses, we most likely wouldn't have gotten a definitive conclusion about the accusations anyway. There was a lot of back and forth between whether or not the White House was going to limit the scope of the investigation. Most recently, it seems like the FBI had been instructed to investigate without any restrictions, which is suspicious based on the details of what they actually investigated. We've seen Yale colleagues call out Kavanaugh for blatantly lying under oath about his drinking habits. We also had a police report come to light about a bar fight he got into in college. Plus, NBC News broke a story regarding text messages that reveal Kavanaugh knew about Ramirez's claim before it became public and about how he was going to refute it. However, the FBI didn't get back about these text messages. We've also seen other witnesses to try and reach out to the FBI to no avail. Then, at a rally Tuesday night, Trump disgustingly and publicly mocked Dr. Ford's testimony. And then, in defense of Kavanaugh, he said, "Think of your son. Think of your husband. It must be nice to have the privilege of not even imagining the possibility of being sexually assaulted in your lifetime." On Tuesday, Mitch McConnell implied that whatever the findings of the FBI investigation, they would not be made public. As of today, the investigation finished up without interviewing Kavanaugh or over 40 people who reached out to the FBI saying they could corroborate the claims against him. Additionally, the FBI didn't look into whether Kavanaugh had lied to Congress, which he did. And there's only one physical copy of the report. So now it's up to 5 key senators who said that they were waiting to make up their minds on Kavanaugh based on this FBI investigation. Unfortunately, rumors have arrived that the FBI's report found, quote, "no hint of misconduct," and that Senator Collins and Senator Flake are both leaning towards a yes vote. These swing votes may announce today how they plan to vote, or we may not find out until tomorrow's vote itself. I just want to end by saying, Dr. Ford, Deborah Ramirez, Julie Swetnick, Anita Hill, I believe you, and I hope justice is served. Let's move on to something else before I get as angry as a sober Brett Kavanaugh. The UN General Assembly met last week, and Trump had an America First themed speech on Tuesday where he praised Kim Jong-un and also condemned Iran's corrupt leadership. Last year, this is when he called Kim Rocket Man and said that parts of the world are going to hell. But this year, he took a positive approach and said that in the 2 years of his administration, he has, quote, accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. And the UN laughed. Trump said, "I didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay." And then later, when asked about it, he said, "They weren't laughing at me, they were laughing with me. We had fun." Trump also rejected trade talks with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada over disagreements on tariffs, adding that the country has, quote, treated us very badly. Although recently that has changed with the NAFTA revamp. Trump also finally accused a foreign power of meddling in the US elections. China. Trump did criticize Venezuela's current state, calling it, quote, a human tragedy, and said that the United States would create new sanctions there. Trump showed what a great team player he was by mentioning that the US had rightfully exited the Human Rights Council, refused to take part in the Global Compact on Migration, or recognize the authority of the International Criminal Court, which it has considered investigating the conduct of American troops in Afghanistan. He also said, quote, "We reject the ideology of globalism and we embrace the doctrine of patriotism around the world." Additionally, National Security Advisor John Bolton said, "If you cross us, our allies, or our partners, if you harm our citizens, if you continue to lie, cheat, and deceive, yes, there will indeed be hell to pay." Aggressive. In reference to Trump and the US, French President Macron threw some shade and said that the Paris Climate Accord has survived despite America's decision to pull out, and offered the suggestion that countries refuse to sign trade deals with those who do not comply with the accord. The president of Iran also critiqued Trump for quitting their agreement, and in reaction to Trump's mention of starting new talks, he said, quote, "It is ironic that the United States government does not even conceal its plan for overthrowing the same government it invites to talks." Speaking of the UN, the Trump administration just made it harder for some LGBTQ diplomats to get visas. The State Department used to give spousal visas to partners of staff in the UN and other international organizations that are based in the US. But then they decided this was too fair and equitable, so this week changes went into effect that require couples to be married to get a visa. Plus, those who already have visas will have to get married by the end of the year or the visas will be revoked. The problem here is that same-sex marriage is illegal in most countries. So this means people have to choose between abandoning their relationship for their jobs or getting married and facing repercussions in their home countries. A spokesperson for the department said this is to, quote, help ensure and promote equal treatment between straight and gay couples. This does the exact opposite and demonstrates why we need equity, not just equality. Additionally, in particularly poor or conservative countries, obtaining a tourist visa to visit the United States is extremely difficult, which they would need to get married in the first place. This policy change will affect about 105 families, and this policy actually reverses what Hillary Clinton put into place in 2009. Back to global news, to remind you America isn't the only place that's fucked up. People are urging the White House to sanction China for putting people in an ethnic Muslim minority in what are essentially concentration camps. A UN panel estimated that China has detained as many as 1 million people in what they call re-education camps. There they are forced to study communist propaganda, give thanks to Chinese president, and get tortured. That's right, there have been various reports of waterboarding and other forms of torture. Chinese officials began using camps around 2014, which is about when China blamed a series of terrorist attacks on radical Islamic separatists. The government has since been targeting the de-extremification of the Muslim community, aka banning Muslim names for babies, along with long beards and veils. They also reportedly tried to promote drinking and smoking because those who didn't drink and smoke, like devout Muslims, were too suspicious. Those detained in the camps are often accused of having strong religious views and politically incorrect ideas. The Chinese government has denied these camps exist. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have both submitted reports to the UN about this mass imprisonment without official charges or legal representation. Until now, the Trump administration hasn't done anything to take these claims seriously and punish China, but that might change soon. That was a lot. Take a breath. We're less than 40 days away from midterm elections, so make sure you're registered to vote if you're eligible. And if you want to be even more involved, volunteer to help out at the polls. You can also join the protest against Kavanaugh's confirmation, especially if you're located in DC. I'm Ginny, and thanks for watching Prompt.